Welcome back to the B.I channel podcast. I'm your host, Nãkel Níkíema, and today we're going to dismantle a belief that quietly drains millions from strategy budgets every year. The belief is this: if we have dashboards, we have intelligence. We don't. Now, I know that might sound harsh, especially if your organization just spent a serious amount of money on a BI platform. Maybe it was a 7-figure rollout. Maybe the executive team got a demo with glossy charts, animations, drill downs, filters, and a single source of truth promise that sounded like the end of confusion. And then reality happened. You're in a meeting. The dashboard is on the screen. Everyone nods. The numbers are there. The colors make sense. The arrows trend up or down. Someone says, "Wow, this is great." And then comes the real moment. Someone asks, "Okay, so what do we do?" And suddenly, the room is quiet. Because the dashboard is telling you what happened. It might even tell you what's happening right now. But it's not telling you what to do next, what to stop doing, what decision to make, what risk to avoid, or what actions will change the outcome. It's not intelligence. It's information. And today's episode is about the gap between those two things, information and actionable insight. Why getting data doesn't guarantee clarity. Why reporting isn't decision-making. And why your $2 million BI investment can still leave you guessing. To help us go deeper, I'm joined by an incredible global panel with 4 different perspectives from 4 regions, each one seeing the same problem, but from a different angle. First, from the Asia-Pacific region, Dr. Lian Zhou, an AI transformation expert who's helped organizations move from analytics projects to real decision systems. Dr. Zhou, welcome.
Thank you, Nãkel. I'm excited, because this topic hits a nerve. In many companies, dashboards are the finish line, but intelligence starts much deeper than a finish line.
From Latin America, Maria Alvarez, a data governance leader who's spent years dealing with the messy truth behind data-driven claims. Maria, great to have you.
Thank you, Nãkel. In LATAM, I see organizations drowning in data but starving for clarity. People have charts everywhere and still run the business on gut feel.
From Europe, Jonas Richter, a specialist in data ethics and compliance, someone who lives in the reality of regulations, risk, and what happens when we treat data like certainty. Jonas, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. And yes, Europe has strong frameworks and mature practices, but that doesn't magically turn dashboards into decisions. Often it just makes the dashboards more legally defensible.
And joining us from Africa, Kwame Mensah, an intelligence systems architect who designs systems that don't just report information, but support decisions in uncertain environments. Kwame, welcome.
Glad to be here, Nãkel. My short version is, dashboards tell you what happened. Intelligence tells you what to do next.
That's exactly where we're going. Let's start with the core question, because it sounds simple but it's where everything breaks. Why isn't data, even beautifully visualized data, the same thing as intelligence? Dr. Zhou, kick us off. When you hear someone say, "We have dashboards, so we're intelligent," what do you think?
I think they're mixing time horizons. Dashboards are largely backward-looking. They summarize history. And history matters, but intelligence is about what comes next. When I work with executive teams, I ask, what decision are you trying to make? Most dashboards cannot answer that. They can show trends, but they don't convert those trends into options, predictions, and trade-offs. Also, dashboards assume you already know what to look for. Intelligence includes discovery, finding signals you didn't know you needed.
So dashboards are like a rearview mirror, useful, but not a steering wheel.
Exactly. And many organizations stare into the rearview mirror while driving faster and faster.
Maria, how do you see the difference between information and intelligence?
For me, the difference is interpretation and commitment. Information is what you can display. Intelligence is what you can act on. In many companies, dashboards become a negotiation tool. Department A says the dashboard proves they're doing well. Department B says the same dashboard proves the opposite. People argue about definitions, filters, timing, and which version of the number is correct. If a dashboard doesn't reduce disagreement and increase coordinated action, it's not giving intelligence. It's just giving everyone more ammunition.
That's a painful truth. Dashboards can actually fuel politics. Jonas, take it from your side: context, governance, compliance. Why isn't visualization enough?
Because a chart can look precise while being fundamentally incomplete. Dashboards usually hide assumptions. They hide how the data was collected, what was excluded, what quality checks failed, what bias exists in the pipeline, and what uncertainty is attached to the number. And without context, you can easily make a confident decision based on a misleading metric. As compliance requirements rise, many organizations become very good at documenting data flow, retention, and access, and much less good at asking, does this number actually represent reality in a way that is safe to act on?
Kwame, you design intelligence systems. What's missing when companies stop at dashboards?
Decision logic. A dashboard is like having instruments on the plane, but no autopilot, no decision support, no checklist for emergencies, and no training for the crew. Intelligence systems include models, rules, thresholds, scenario planning, alerts, and workflows. They connect measurement to action. Most dashboards stop at visibility. But visibility doesn't guarantee movement. You can clearly see a problem and still do nothing.
Okay, so we have a theme: dashboards describe, intelligence decides. Let's make this real for listeners. Think about a typical organization: sales dashboards, customer churn dashboards, supply chain dashboards, HR dashboards, financial dashboards. They're all there. But somehow leaders still hesitate, or they argue, or they default to instinct. Segment 2, the gap between information and action. Here's the question: why do organizations say they're data-driven, but still hesitate when it's time to move? Maria, I want you to start here, because governance often sees the messy middle between, we have data, and, we do decisions.
Hesitation comes from uncertainty, and uncertainty comes from missing explanations. Dashboards are great at answering what. What happened, what changed, what is the current value? But leaders don't act on what. They act on why and what next. If revenue drops, the dashboard shows the drop. But the executive needs to know, is it pricing? Is it competition? Is it a channel problem? Is it a seasonal shift? Is it a reporting artifact? Is it a customer segment? Which lever do we pull? When the dashboard doesn't provide causal hypotheses or next step recommendations, people hesitate because acting becomes risky. And nobody wants to be the person who made a big move based on a chart that didn't tell the whole story.
Dr. Zhou, what do you see? You work with AI transformation. Where does the hesitation come from?
Overload and fragmentation. Executives get hundreds of charts. Each dashboard is built by a team with a different worldview. This one is marketing truth. That one is finance truth. Another is operations truth. So instead of intelligence, leaders get what I call visual noise. And when people are overwhelmed, they revert to familiar behavior. They ask for another report, they schedule another meeting, they postpone the decision, or they choose the safest, smallest action. A true intelligence approach reduces the cognitive load. It surfaces the few signals that matter, explains why they matter, and links them to decision options.
Jonas, what about risk? Because in many industries, the reason people hesitate is not just confusion. It's fear.
Yes, and dashboards rarely model risk properly. They present metrics like they are facts with no uncertainty interval. But the real world is probabilistic. Data is sampled, delayed, incomplete, biased. Even a well-built metric has variance. So a leader looks at a KPI and thinks, if I act, I'm accountable. If I wait, I can say I was cautious. Another issue. In regulated environments, acting on data can create liability. If a model or a metric leads to discriminatory outcomes or a faulty operational decision, the question becomes, who is responsible and can we explain the reasoning? Dashboards don't provide reasoning. They provide display.
Kwame, bring it home for us. If a dashboard doesn't lead to action, what's missing in the organization?
Synthesis. An intelligence system integrates signals. A dashboard often isolates them. Let's take a simple example, customer churn. A dashboard might show churn is rising. But intelligence combines product usage signals, customer support signals, payment risk signals, competitor activity signals, and even external factors. Then it says, these are the highest risk accounts, these are the drivers, and here are the 3 interventions with the best expected impact. A dashboard doesn't do that integration by default. It's not designed for it. Also, organizations often don't have decision ownership. If no one owns the decision, the dashboard becomes a mirror people walk past every day.
That's a powerful line. The dashboard becomes a mirror people walk past. So we've established that information doesn't automatically become action. Now let's touch the painful part. Segment 3 is the question that hits budgets and careers. If BI tools are so common, why do so many organizations spend, let's say, $2 million on BI and still feel blind? Kwame, you said earlier BI tools are built for reporting, not decision-making. Expand that for us.
Sure. Many BI deployments are framed as self-service analytics. That means the organization invests in tools so people can explore data. But exploration is not a decision system. A decision system connects data to a repeatable process. Detect, interpret, decide, act, learn. BI investments often stop at the first 2. They detect and they show. But decisions require responsibility, workflow integration, and feedback loops. If a dashboard shows an anomaly, what happens next? Who picks it up? What action is triggered? How do we measure whether the action worked? How do we update the logic? If those parts are missing, you just have expensive visibility.
Maria, from the governance side, why do big BI rollouts disappoint?
Because organizations buy technology but don't design an intelligence operating model. They think, if we centralize data and build dashboards, alignment will happen. But alignment is social, not just technical. You need shared definitions, ownership of data products, clear stewardship, training, and accountability for how numbers are used. Otherwise you get what I see all the time. The BI platform goes live, people love it for a month, then they export to Excel anyway. Or each team rebuilds their own version because they don't trust the centralized metrics. And then leadership says, why is adoption low? But it's not just adoption. It's trust.
Dr. Zhou, where do BI teams go wrong? Because BI teams work hard, there's no question. But the outcome often doesn't match the effort.
Many BI teams are incentivized to deliver outputs, not outcomes. They get requests like, build me a dashboard for this. Add this metric. Add another filter. So they become a dashboard factory. But intelligence requires product thinking. What decision is being improved? What behavior should change? What is the value if we do this right? How will we know? Another issue is that organizations treat AI like a layer on top of dashboards. They say, let's add AI insights to the dashboard. But if you don't redesign the decision process, the AI insight becomes just another tile on the screen. Transformation is not adding features, transformation is changing how decisions are made.
Jonas, your angle is interesting because many companies do collect data because they have to. They have compliance motivations. So why does that still not lead to understanding?
Compliance can create data accumulation without meaning. You collect data to prove controls. You store logs. You track consent. You implement retention. Those are important. but the act of collecting doesn't guarantee interpretability. Also, compliance can make people risk-averse about experimentation. The hardest part of intelligence is learning, building hypotheses, testing interventions, iterating. If the culture says, don't touch anything, don't create risk, then dashboards become an endpoint. You observe safely, but you don't change.
So the tragedy is, we can spend millions to become better observers, and still not become better decision makers. Let's switch gears a bit. Segment 4, what does intelligence actually look like? If dashboards aren't the destination, what is the destination? When you visit an organization that's doing this well, what do you see in practice? Kwame, paint a picture. What does actionable clarity look like in a real environment?
You see decisions embedded in systems. For example, instead of a dashboard showing inventory levels, you have an intelligence layer that forecasts demand, detects supply risk, proposes reorder quantities, and triggers procurement workflows. Humans can override, but the system gives a recommended action with reasoning. Demand in region X is expected to increase by Y based on these signals. Supplier Z has a higher delay probability this month. The recommended reorder point is this. And crucially, the system learns. After the decision, you measure outcomes. Did stockouts decrease? Did carrying costs increase? Did customer satisfaction improve? Then the logic updates. That's intelligence, a loop. Dashboards are often static snapshots. Intelligence is dynamic behavior.
Dr. Zhou, define intelligence in a way that leaders can use. Because predictive can become a buzzword too.
For leaders, intelligence is the ability to make better decisions with less friction. Predictive helps, but it's not only prediction. Intelligence means the system can answer, what is likely to happen, why might it happen, what options do we have, and what are the expected trade-offs. It also means it can prioritize. A leader doesn't need 50 metrics. They need the 3 that drive today's decision. So intelligence is not just accuracy, it's relevance, speed, and alignment.
Maria, you said earlier intelligence is aligned, everyone sees the same truth. Tell me what that looks like beyond a slogan.
It looks like having shared definitions that are operational, not philosophical. When we say, active customer, everyone knows exactly what that means, how it's calculated, and where it is used. It looks like data products with owners. Not the data team owns everything, but specific owners for specific domains. It also looks like governance that is enabling. A lot of people hear governance and think restrictions. But good governance creates trust so people can act faster. If you trust the metric, you can move. And alignment requires that the decision makers and the data builders are in the same conversations early, before dashboards are built.
Jonas, if intelligence is governed, trustworthy, ethical, and explainable, how does that show up day to day?
It shows up as transparency and accountability. When a system recommends an action, you can trace its logic. Not necessarily every line of code, but the principle and the data sources. It shows up as documented limitations. This model is reliable in these segments, less reliable in those segments. It shows up as fairness checks, bias monitoring, and the ability to challenge outputs. And it shows up in consistent decision records. If you acted on a recommendation, you log it. If you overrode it, you log why. That creates learning and reduces silent harm. Dashboards rarely create that kind of audit trail around decisions. They create screenshots.
Screenshots, that's real. Okay. Now we're at the practical part. Segment 5, how do organizations move beyond dashboards? Because the listener right now might be thinking, yes, I agree. But I still have to work with what we have. Where do we begin? Maria, you said earlier, start with questions, not charts. Walk us through that approach. How does a company actually do that next week, not next year?
Next week, you can do something simple but powerful. Choose one high-stakes decision. Not a KPI. A decision. For example, should we expand into this new market? Which customers should we prioritize for retention? Which products should we discontinue? Where should we reduce costs without damaging service? Then ask, what information do we need to make that decision with confidence? After that, you identify the minimum set of metrics and data sources needed, and you agree on definitions. Then you build the dashboard or the report as a decision artifact, not a status artifact. And you assign ownership: who makes the decision, who maintains the data, who reviews it, and how often. This shifts BI from being a gallery of charts to being a tool for a specific action.
Dr. Zhou, you talked about intelligence loops, not reporting cycles. What does that mean in practical terms?
A reporting cycle is collect data, publish dashboard, repeat. An intelligence loop is sense, interpret, decide, act, learn. Practically, that means you build mechanisms for feedback. If the dashboard highlights underperformance, the next step can't be note it and move on. The next step must be, what hypothesis explains it, what action will we try, and what metric will confirm the action worked. I encourage teams to add decision reviews alongside metric reviews. Not just what happened, but what did we decide last time, what did we do, and what happened because of it. That turns analytics into a living system, not a monthly publication.
Kwame, you mentioned agents and decision systems, not more dashboards. That can sound futuristic to some listeners. Make it real. What are agents in a business context, and how do they replace the dashboard obsession?
An agent is a system component that can monitor conditions, reason over data, and trigger actions, or at least recommend actions, within constraints. In business terms, think of an agent like a teammate that watches the environment. Example: a revenue agent monitors pipeline health, conversion rates, and deal slippage. When certain patterns appear, it alerts the sales leader: deals in segment A are stalling at stage 3, likely cause is pricing objections, recommended action is enablement plus revised offer for these accounts. Or a fraud agent monitors transactions and flags risk with an explanation. Or an operations agent monitors machine performance and schedules maintenance. The key difference is that agents are tied to a decision and a workflow. A dashboard waits for you to visit it. An agent comes to you when action matters. But I'll say this, you don't need to automate everything. Even basic decision systems, like rules, playbooks, scenario tools, are a major step beyond dashboards.
Jonas, last word on the how. You said, govern the intelligence, not just the data. What does that mean?
It means governance should extend to recommendations and decisions. We often govern inputs, data quality, access control, lineage. But if we stop there, we can have perfectly governed data feeding poorly governed decisions. So we also need to govern models, business rules, and decision criteria. Questions like, who approved this model for use? What are the unacceptable failure modes? What is the process when the system is wrong? How do we ensure explainability? How do we detect drift? How do we audit outcomes for harm? That is governance of intelligence. And it's not bureaucracy for its own sake. Done well, it creates confidence, and confidence enables action.
Let's do something here. I want to pressure test this idea with a scenario that feels familiar. Imagine a company whose executive team meets every Monday. They open the dashboard. The KPIs are there. But the meeting always ends the same way: 5 action items, none owned clearly, and by next Monday, the same problems are still present. What would each of you change first? Maria?
I would change the meeting structure. Keep the dashboard, but stop using it as the agenda. Use it as the input. The agenda should be decisions. For each decision, define the owner, define the deadline, define what success looks like, and define what data will tell us whether it worked. If you do that, the dashboard becomes a feedback mechanism, not a weekly ritual.
Dr. Zhou?
I would add a why layer. Not just what changed, but likely drivers. Even if it's not machine learning at first, you can do structured root cause analysis, segment breakdowns, correlation checks, leading indicators. Executives need interpretation built into the conversation. Otherwise they are staring at symptoms.
Jonas?
I would add uncertainty and integrity indicators. For key metrics, show confidence levels or quality scores. If a metric is based on delayed data, label it clearly. If a metric has known bias, say it underrepresents a segment, flag it. That changes behavior. People stop treating the dashboard like an oracle.
Kwame?
I would connect the meeting to a playbook. If churn rises, what are the approved interventions? Who executes them? What is the time window? If supply risk rises, what does procurement do? Intelligence is not only analysis, it's readiness. So I'd build a few decision playbooks tied to the top business risks, then make the dashboard trigger the playbook.
That's one of the most practical takeaways. A dashboard plus a playbook is already a step toward intelligence. Let's talk about a subtle trap, the belief that more data will fix confusion. How many times have we heard, we just need more data, or, if we integrate more sources, we'll finally understand the business? Dr. Zhou, you first. Does more data usually help?
It can, but often it makes the problem worse. More data increases complexity. If the organization lacks a clear decision framework, adding more data increases divergence, more interpretations, more arguments. Also, data has diminishing returns. The first data sources may explain 70% of what matters. The next 30 sources add marginal insight but huge governance and integration cost. So I tell leaders, don't ask, how can we get more data? Ask, what decision are we improving, and what is the smallest data that changes the decision?
Maria, what happens when organizations chase single source of truth as the goal?
They turn a business challenge into an endless technical project. The truth is not a single database. It's an agreement. Even if you centralize data, you still need shared semantics. You still need to decide which definitions are official, and you still need change control. Otherwise your single source of truth becomes a single source of conflict. And there's another thing, some truths are context-specific. Finance and marketing may legitimately view revenue differently for their purposes. Intelligence requires understanding those contexts and reconciling them where decisions require alignment.
Jonas, what about ethics and compliance when companies add more data? Any hidden risks there?
Yes, more data can increase exposure. You increase the risk of collecting data you don't need, storing it too long, or using it for purposes that violate consent. You also risk function creep. Data collected for one purpose quietly being used for another. And ethically, adding more data can make systems feel more objective than they really are. People think, we have everything, so the recommendation must be right. But more features can hide bias, not remove it. So the discipline is, collect what you need, justify why, and govern how it is used in decisions.
Kwame, the engineering angle, what's a common architecture mistake that keeps dashboards from becoming intelligence?
Building for reporting performance rather than decision performance. Reporting performance means fast dashboards, refreshed nightly, optimized queries. Decision performance means something else, low latency signals where needed, reliable semantics, robust monitoring, and integration with action systems. For example, if you discover churn risk after the customer already left, the dashboard is perfect but irrelevant. So architecture should be aligned with decision timing. Some decisions are strategic, monthly. Some are tactical, daily. Some are operational, minute by minute. If your BI stack only supports monthly reflection, you will never get operational intelligence.
Let's zoom in on something that quietly kills intelligence, metrics without meaning. Many organizations have KPI catalogs that look impressive. But when you ask, which KPIs drive decisions, the answer is unclear. Maria, what's your litmus test for a good metric?
A good metric has a decision attached. If nobody can tell me what decision changes when the metric changes, it's probably vanity. A good metric also has an owner, a definition, and a known data lineage. And it has a review cadence that matches its purpose. One more, a good metric has an action threshold. If conversion falls below X, we do Y. If it rises above Z, we invest more. Without a threshold, people can stare at small fluctuations forever.
Jonas, your view, what makes a metric dangerous?
A metric is dangerous when it becomes a target. Once people are evaluated on it, they will optimize it, sometimes in ways that undermine the goal. Another danger is false comparability. A metric might be valid for one region but not another due to different market conditions, regulatory constraints, or reporting practices. So governance isn't just about correctness. It's about preventing misuse. A responsible intelligence system includes do not use for notes, and it monitors for unintended consequences.
Dr. Zhou, how does AI change this conversation? Some listeners will think, maybe dashboards aren't intelligence, but AI will fix it. Will it?
AI can help, but it can also amplify the problem. If you add AI to a weak decision process, you get faster confusion. AI becomes transformative when it is intentionally placed into a decision loop. For example, prioritizing cases, forecasting outcomes, recommending interventions, detecting anomalies, generating explanations. But AI must be constrained by governance, and it must be evaluated by outcomes. The best implementations I see treat AI as an assistant to decision makers, not as decoration for dashboards.
Kwame, do you agree? Is AI the missing piece, or is it something else?
I agree. The missing piece is not AI. It's decision engineering. AI is a component. Decision engineering designs how an organization makes choices under uncertainty, what triggers a decision, what information is required, how options are evaluated, how actions are executed, and how learning happens. If you have that structure, simple rules can work. With more maturity, models can work. With more resources, agents can work. Without that structure, AI just becomes another chart, only now it's a chart with a confidence score people don't understand.
Let's do a quick lightning round, because I want the listener to walk away with sharp distinctions. Finish this sentence. A dashboard is useful when, Jonas?
A dashboard is useful when it provides shared visibility and prompts the right questions, without pretending to be the final answer.
Maria?
A dashboard is useful when it is tied to a decision and owned by people who will actually act on it.
Dr. Zhou?
A dashboard is useful when it reduces complexity, when it tells you what matters, not everything that's measurable.
Kwame?
A dashboard is useful when it is one instrument in a larger system that includes interpretation, action, and feedback.
Now the opposite, a dashboard becomes harmful when, Maria?
When it becomes a replacement for decision-making, when people hide behind charts to avoid accountability.
Jonas?
When it communicates certainty where none exists, or when it pushes people to optimize metrics at the expense of ethics or long-term outcomes.
Dr. Zhou?
When it creates noise, too many metrics, too many filters, too much freedom without guidance.
Kwame?
When it delays action, when people keep looking at the dashboard hoping it will answer a question it was never designed to answer.
I want to bring in a theme that's implicit here, culture. Because you can do everything right technically and still fail if the organization treats data as a weapon or a shield. Maria, what cultural patterns keep companies stuck in dashboard mode?
The biggest one is fear of being wrong. When people are punished for decisions that don't work, they will avoid decisions. Dashboards become a way to delay. Another pattern is local optimization. Each team builds dashboards that make them look good. They optimize their KPIs, not the enterprise outcome. And then you get misalignment. Marketing celebrates lead volume, sales complains about lead quality, finance complains about profitability. Intelligence culture is different. It rewards learning. It rewards transparency. It asks, what did we try, what did we learn, and what will we do next?
Jonas, does ethics culture tie into this too?
Absolutely. Ethical culture determines whether people feel empowered to question the numbers. In a healthy culture, someone can say, this metric might disadvantage a group, or this model may be biased, without being labeled as difficult. In an unhealthy culture, dashboards create false authority. The data says it, so we do it. Intelligence requires dissent. It requires the ability to challenge evidence and interpret it responsibly.
Dr. Zhou, in transformation programs, how do you shift culture from reporting to learning?
You measure outcomes, not dashboard usage. Many organizations track adoption, how many people logged in. But that's shallow. Track decisions improved. Did forecasting improve? Did waste decrease? Did time to resolution drop? And create rituals around learning, post-decision reviews, experiment reviews, model performance reviews. When leaders consistently ask, what did we decide, and what happened after, the culture shifts from reporting to accountability and learning.
Kwame, what's the role of design here? Because sometimes intelligence fails not due to data, but due to how humans interact with systems.
Design is huge. Dashboards are often designed for analysts, not for decision makers. Decision makers need clarity, prioritization, and next actions. So you design interfaces that answer, what changed, why it matters, what to do, and what happens if we do nothing. You also design for the real environment. Many decisions happen on phones, in meetings, under pressure. A complex dashboard with 20 tabs does not survive that environment. Intelligence design is about reducing friction between insight and action.
Let's address a listener objection. Some people will say, this sounds great, but we're not ready for intelligence systems. We can barely keep our dashboards accurate. What would you tell them? Maria?
Start small and start honest. Pick one domain. Fix definitions. Build trust in a small set of metrics. And don't pretend you can govern everything at once. Governance maturity comes from focusing on what matters most, and expanding from there. You don't need perfection to start acting. You need enough reliability and enough alignment.
Jonas?
If accuracy is a challenge, that's actually a reason to avoid overconfident decision-making. Start by making uncertainty visible, document limitations, improve incrementally, and prioritize high-risk areas. Anything affecting safety, rights, financial integrity, or vulnerable groups. Govern those first. Intelligence is not only about capability, it's about responsibility.
Dr. Zhou?
You don't need to jump directly to advanced AI. You can implement intelligence principles with simple tools, better questions, decision templates, root cause routines, clear ownership. Sometimes the biggest improvement is simply shifting from reporting what happened to deciding what to do.
Kwame?
I would say, if dashboards are inaccurate, stop building new ones. Stabilize the foundations for a specific decision. Create one reliable signal. One trusted metric. One action flow. Then expand. Intelligence grows like infrastructure. It's built in layers, but each layer must hold weight.
Before we close, I want each of you to give one concrete principle, something a leader can write down. Dr. Zhou, one principle.
Design from the decision backward, not from the data forward.
Maria?
Trust is a deliverable. If people don't trust the numbers, adoption won't matter.
Jonas?
Govern recommendations and outcomes, not just datasets.
Kwame?
Visibility without workflow is theater. Connect insight to action and learning.
That's the episode right there. Dashboards were never meant to be the final destination. They were the first step, like the first map you draw when you realize you need to navigate. Intelligence is what happens when data becomes meaning, meaning becomes a decision, decisions become coordinated action, and action becomes measurable advantage. If you're listening and you've felt that frustration, the beautiful dashboard, the unclear next step, know that you're not alone. It's not that you're not data-driven enough. It's that the organization has confused reporting with intelligence. Today we heard 4 global perspectives. From Dr. Lien Zhou, intelligence looks forward and reduces complexity into decisions. From Maria Alvarez, intelligence requires trust, shared definitions, and decision ownership. From Jonas Richter, intelligence must be contextual, governed, and accountable, especially when risk is real. From Kwame Mensah, intelligence is a loop, sense, decide, act, learn, not a wall of charts. Dr. Zhou, Maria, Jonas, Kwame, thank you for joining me and for bringing so much clarity to this conversation. And to you listening, thanks for spending this time with the BI Channel podcast, where data meets decisions. Until next time.